This is Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington, and today I wanted to talk about Telecasters and Intonation. So, some of you out there who are Telecaster players might already be kind of rolling your eyes because you know exactly what I'm about to talk about. Some of you may be new to this. Telecasters have been around for a long time, and there are a lot of different iterations of the Telecaster bridge. Some of them intonate better than others, some of them have other benefits, and it's almost a matter of personal taste in terms of some aspects of things, but in terms of intonation, objectively intonating the instrument, that's mainly the issue that we're going to be focusing on today, because that's a problem for the older style Telecaster bridges that have 3 saddles. If you have one of these bridges, you're likely looking at something like this, where you have a intonation screw that's running perpendicular to a saddle that's either made of all thread or brass. If you have one of the newer style Telecaster bridges, you're likely looking at something that has 6 different saddles for each string, and kind of has looks a little bit more like a Strat bridge, except that you don't have the tremolo, you just have that standard Tele plate under there. If you have one of those newer bridges, this video isn't necessarily going to be relevant for you, but you may want to stick around just to learn a thing or two. But for you guys who have the older style bridges, this video is definitely for you. So let's go ahead and talk about these bridges. So when doing intonation adjustments, we need to move the saddle either further away from the 12th fret or closer to the 12th fret as we're intonating the instrument. And what do we mean by that? Well, intonation is the adjustment that makes it so that when you're playing your open E, and that's perfect, that you're also getting a perfect E when you play up at your 12th fret. And you get there by moving that saddle either backwards or forwards, depending on how sharp or how flat it is at that 12th fret. Already you may be thinking, okay, well there's a problem there, because each one of those 3 saddles spans 2 strings, right? Well, that is the issue. The issue is that when you adjust one of those strings to be perfect, that the other one is kind of coming along for the ride and it's going to land wherever it lands. And so you're making a compromise usually when you intonate these bridges. That is to say, you're either taking one of those strings and choosing that that's the one that you're going to intonate perfectly and the other one is just going to be off, or that you are going to take a string that's intonating really high and a string that's intonating really low and kind of bring it into some kind of middle ground. And it's just never going to be perfect. Your intonation is always going to be off, which means that you're going to have crunchy chords, you're going to be playing a little bit off key as you go up the neck, you may be playing a little out of key with bandmates, and all of the other problems that come with bad intonation. So, what do we do about this? Well, there are some options. One of those options would be if you have a modern Strat, something newer or cheaper that you don't really care about the resale value of, you could, if you wanted to, go the route of installing a more modern Telecaster bridge on it, one of the ones that has the 6 saddles. You can't usually just pop one of these in. Generally, there is a little bit of a difference in the spacing from where the pickup is to where the end of the saddle is, and you're probably going to have to fudge things around a little bit, or maybe do some route work in the pickup cavity in order to get this to work. But you can do it. So if it's something that you want to do, and you want to have that modern bridge on there, that's an option for you. There are pros and cons to it. One of the pros is that you can have perfect intonation on all of those strings, but one of the cons is that you lose a little bit of that classic Tele tone. And one of the reasons that these bridges are still around is that you have just a little bit more oomph and a little bit more power that comes from these 3 saddle arrangements. And I couldn't exactly articulate to you why it is that that's the case, but my theory is that there's just more mass there, and that brass is just a really nice material for making contact with the saddle. So when you're playing one of these guys, you can hear the difference between one of the older style bridges and one of the newer style ones. At least I can hear the difference. I might not be able to hear that outside the bar, but if I was in my living room and I was doing home recording, I probably would opt to have the Telecaster that has a little bit more punch, because that's what I'd be wanting if I'm playing a Telecaster. So, if we want that tone, but we don't want to modify the guitar, and we have one of these bridges, well, what do we do? What's the solution here? So this customer is having me install these guys. If you look at this, saddle, you'll notice that the screw, the intonation screw, isn't actually going perpendicular into that saddle. There's a tilt, and that's on purpose. These saddles come with a pre-prescribed tilt to compensate for that intonation at the bridge. And while it's probably not going to give you an exact perfect intonation, because you can't really adjust that tilt on these saddles, it is going to get you a lot closer than you would be otherwise. I've put these on Telecasters and had them land right on the money before. Not every single time, but I have seen that before, and so they're pretty darn close. The other thing that's cool about these is that you don't really lose any of the aesthetic. Like, if you looked at this looks like a part that could have been produced in the 1950s. It doesn't take away from that even close-up aesthetic of your Telecaster. And the other thing is that you still maintain that tone, because this is still basically the same arrangement where you have a single saddle for 2 strings that's made out of a nice, dense, heavy material. So that's one option for you. Another option is that there are saddles out there that have a tilt adjustment. These typically are more expensive than those, but it's really cool because you can adjust both the complete forward and backwards of the entire saddle, but you can also kind of tilt the saddle and adjust that tilt, which is neat because that means that you can get actually perfect intonation and maintain that 3-saddle look. Now, if you look at those saddles, they do look a little bit more modern than these, so if you're getting up close, it's not going to look like a 1950s Telecaster, but maybe from arm's length or from people watching you on stage, they will see a standard old Telecaster. Those are another good option for you. I have not personally really had a lot of chance to play around with those. Usually these are good enough for the customers that I've worked with, but I imagine that you get very similar results in terms of the tone and sustain out of those saddles, because they do look to be solid brass, and I can't imagine that there would be too much difference, unless quite a lot of material was needed to go for that system to work, which I don't think is the case. But yeah, those 2 things would be really, really good options for you. They don't require any modification to the bridge, and they don't require any modification to the guitar really beyond installing the saddles and then going through and doing setup work afterwards, which is really, really cool. Hold on to your old saddles, put those in a safe little bag, and put them back in your case in case you want to resell the instrument and you want to maintain the original parts. But otherwise, when you put those on your guitar, you're going to have something that has the look, that has the tone, and also has the intonation that you're going to be looking for. Because intonation at the end of the day is kind of a big deal. And personally, it's really a toss-up as to whether or not I would want to tolerate intonation being off for something that just sounded a little better. I don't know, maybe if you're playing old blues and you like those chords to sound really, really crunchy, or you don't mind it going out of tune up the neck, I don't know, maybe that's something somebody likes. But I think that it's really, really important to be mindful of that intonation and how your chords are playing well together, and how you're playing well with other musicians, and how things are sounding in general. And so I think that this is an important issue to consider with your guitar. The saddles that I'm installing, the ones that I showed you, are like 15 to 20 bucks on Amazon or eBay. They're a very cheap modification for your instrument. The other ones that I was talking about with the adjustable tilt, they're like 35, 40 bucks on eBay or Amazon. So it's not even that much of an investment either. You could just buy a set of those and plan on putting them on your guitar when you do your next restring or setup. Take them to your local shop and just say, hey, put these on when you do the setup. That's how I get them in a lot of times. So anyway, I just wanted to make this video to let people with Telecasters know that this isn't a problem that you have to live with, and it's not something that you have to that you have to put up with for that tone. So, you know, hopefully some of you may consider some of the stuff that I was talking about here, and I don't know, try out some of those saddles and see if you like them. This has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. If you enjoyed this video, I have many more like this on my channel. And if you found this video helpful and you want to kick me a few bucks, I have a link to my Ko-fi and my Patreon in the description of the video. You can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or you can kick me a one-time tip on Ko-fi. I also have a link to my website in the description of the video. There's a guide to caring for stringed instruments in there, and there's my price guide and my contact information in case you happen to be in the Seattle area and in need of repair work. Love to hear from you, love getting new customers in. I really enjoy my work, and I enjoy working with guitars like this and making them sound better. So, thank you for watching. Have a good one.